Welcome back to another episode of Positively Uncensored, your favorite reality TV and interview podcast. It's your host, Leah, and I decided that I haven't done a live podcast in a while. Because of this, I always love any chance that I have to connect with my subscribers over on YouTube. So I decided that this Wednesday I wanted to do a live episode. In fact, I'm toying with, because I'm bad at commitment, but I'm toying with the idea of every Wednesday potentially going live. And if not going live, every Wednesday doing just a very casual episode where I cover a multitude of topics. That's exactly what I'm going to be doing this episode. Before I get into all of the things that we're going to be talking about, just a reminder to subscribe if you haven't already subscribed, like this video, pop outside of the stream, give the actual video a like if you would, and comment in the chat so that I know you're here. I'm going to talk about tons of things today. I'm going to talk about some things going on in my life. I'm going to give you guys some updates. I'm going to be talking about Nia posting a controversial video that people who watch Vanderpump Rules in the Valley are reacting to. I just want to say that, to quote Blue from Bluecentric and Jessie Woo, I was early. I often feel that way when I have a take that's sometimes a hot take or controversial or people say is unkind. Um, I I had a lot of convictions about Nia and why Nia brought up such defensiveness amongst the audience. And this video kind of reinforced that. So we're going to talk about that. I'm going to talk about Dancing with the Stars episode last night. Dancing with the Car Dancing with the Cars. Dancing with the Stars comes on every Tuesday night. So if you don't watch Dancing with the Stars, this will just be a very short segment about Carrie Ann, calling out Carrie Ann as somebody who's been watching this show since I was a child, probably since its first year on. Carrie Ann has consistently been a problem, and there's a running theme with Carrie Ann's criticisms. I'm also going to be diving into Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. We had a new episode of that last night as well. Both Dancing with the Stars and Salt Lake City comes on Tuesday evenings. So I'm going to give a recap. I did a poll over on my YouTube and my Instagram to see what shows people wanted me to tap into, and a lot of you answered Salt Lake City. So I promise I'm not going to leave you behind. I'm also going to be talking about Olandria's cover on Harper's Bazaar, a little bit of Squid Game, the challenge. So I'm diving into a lot of things. Let's start with Nia's video. Now, if you're unfamiliar with my takes on Nia, just a couple of general things that I've pointed out is, one, I think that Nia and Danny are very intentional. I would use the word calculated, but a more gracious way of saying that is very intentional with how they come across on screen. And it's something I talk about a lot, specifically when covering the show Married at First Sight. But I understand the desire to protect your relationship and that not being compatible with being on reality TV. However, we are viewers, we are consumers. They are on a reality TV show, and Nia and Danny are just very calculated about where they have their arguments, what they say on camera, how they present themselves, and the rest of the cast is really not like that. I've also talked about how Nia seems to bring up this feeling of defensiveness, specifically with people who resonate with her. I don't know if that's like a conservative thing. I don't know if that's like a Christianity thing rooted in their faith, but a lot of women were seemingly saying that Nia is a great wife. I'm not saying that she's not, but that she was the best cast member and that she never did anything wrong. And I just think, yeah, I think that that's revealing. I think that that's revealing a lot about us as viewers, who we resonate with and who we always think is right. So without further ado, as stated, let's look at Nia's video. I'll come back to my thoughts on this as I watch it. And I'm only going to play part of it because I think that YouTube has a huge issue with allowing a video to be monetized or playing other content. So I'm going to be playing the part that I wanted to talk about.
This park, I'm so glad there's a park next to the place that we came to go, but there's like holes everywhere. construction tape, like it's broken down. And also, every little thing was going wrong. We stopped at Starbucks. The Ash's water bottle rolled under the car to a place where we couldn't get it. And then, like, I realized I was out of gas. We had to stop and get gas before driving when all the kids are fussy. And then we get here, and this park is like infested with unhoused people.
Infested. As I always say on the podcast, language is important. Now, first of all, Nia's complaining about how it's her son Asher's birthday and she wanted to take her son to a science museum, but the science museum was closed. Granted, yesterday was Veterans Day, so it was closed because it's a holiday. I don't know if Nia thinks that the holiday will change because she's a mother or because her child's birthday happens to fall on said holiday, but the museum's not going to be open for you specifically. And I will say that's a little bit of lack of detective work on your end to not call the museum and make sure that they're open because it's a holiday, right? And holiday hours and whatnot, especially if you're going to make the trip out. Then she continues to complain about how she goes to Starbucks and a water bottle. And then the next thing she's talking about is how she's at this park and she's saying that it's super run down. All the while, it looks like a very nice park. She's also in California. It looks like a very nice park. And then she chooses to say that it's the park that she's trying to take her children to is infested with, and then instead of saying homeless people, she uses the politically correct term unhoused people. It's just like a double negative or a double entendre. Entendre? Tell me how to pronounce that in the comments. But you're negating yourself, Nia. You're upset that the world isn't catering to you. You're upset that you're dealing with things that tons of mothers every single day are dealing with. And I understand that part of her content may be trying to be relatable, but this video came off, even to me as someone who doesn't have young children, as she was complaining that the world wasn't centering her child's birthday. Things weren't going perfectly. She can't go to the park without it being infested, to quote her. Mind you, it's not really acknowledging the recent tragedy that happened in Los Angeles and the surrounding areas. So why do you think that there is an increase? Along with just, have you seen the economy and people can't afford to buy homes? There's a reason why people aren't in comfortable houses like you and Danny are. The video was just tone deaf. It was complaining about things that nobody has control of, that everybody experiences. I think that she's out of touch. I think that her and Danny represent this like Christian family because Danny tries to act like a good husband and isn't outright cheating on Nia, although he is doing concerning things. And I think that Nia is very pageant like, and she's used to having to police Danny's behavior and monitor him and keep him from embarrassing her. And she's had to take this role on even more so on the show. And just his lack of onus on parental responsibilities and how many times we've seen Nia leave an event because Danny just simply can't handle the children back at home. I think that there's a lot of things that are wrong in their relationship that a lot of viewers just weren't really being honest about during the season. And I just want to state too, in all of those situations that I just listed, Nia is the victim in all of those situations, right? Like a husband who has learned incompetence, who weaponizes that and isn't helping her, all of that, she's the victim in. However, I think that her and Danny are out of touch. And I just generally feel like they're a bit misplaced on the Valley and at times under criticized. Let me check in with the chat because I'm seeing that people are starting to pop in. Hi, Gia. You said she just moved to Santa Clarita. That says a lot. If you live in LA, you know what I'm talking about. And for anybody else who's listening, who's familiar with the areas, yes, please tap in and weigh in. And Gia, thank you. I'm so glad also that you made it to the live. I'm going to pop the comments up just because I know that some people watch afterwards. And because they're not seeing the chat pop up live, they're wanting to engage as well. So yeah, I think that Nia's tone deaf. I don't relate to her and Danny. I think that Danny is a terrible partner. I think that she I was concerned for her when, after dealing with postpartum, she made the decision to just like have another child. I couldn't figure out whether she wanted the number 4, if Danny wanted the number 4, but overall, I'm not envious of their relationship. And again, I think that just because they're not Jax and Britani and fighting to that volatile level, they've managed to escape a lot of criticisms. Now, the next thing that I want to talk about, and let me make sure that this pulled up properly. It certainly did. Okay, so the next thing that I want to talk about was Olandria's cover on Harper's Bazaar. Now, elephant in the room. It took her 4 months, 4 months only to accomplish this. The cover, not to mention her versatility and the ability in which she effortlessly pulls off every single look that she is in. Olandria is a powerhouse. She is stunning. When she spoke into existence that she was going to be a model, it makes me so happy to see that come to fruition. As a day one Olandrian, as a day one Nicolandrian, I'm just so happy for every single accomplishment that we get to see her have. And this photo shoot is one of those. So for all of my audio listeners, I don't want to leave you out, so I would like to provide a description as I'm talking. Olandria on the cover of Harper's Bazaar, she is wearing a red dress, which looks to have maybe potentially like a pair of shorts or a brief. She pulls it off stunning, right? If I wore that, it potentially might look like a pair of underwear, but she has on a sophisticated belt. It has a V-neck. She has on, I don't even know how to describe it, but like a train on the back of her dress. For people who are in fashion, I'll be excited for you to comment and weigh in on this later. What is this type of dress called? She looks stunning. On my TikTok, I talked about how if I tried to pull this off, I would look like Yzma for Emperor's New Groove. If you're not familiar with that movie, get familiar. But Olandria pulls it off, as I said, effortlessly, and she looks stunning. I have to take a separate second to talk about how stunning her short hair looks. She looks stunning. As stated, the versatility in which Olandria can pull off any of these looks, the short hair is a look. And mind you, I want to go back to what the cover says. Bama Barbie, Alandria Carthen from Alabama to the global spotlight. You heard it, global, because what issue of Harper's Bazaar is this? That's right, it's Vietnam. She's global. She's Mrs. Worldwide. This next photo is one of my absolute favorite photos. When I see this photo, Alandria is in, I don't even know how to I'm going to do horrible at describing this. She is in like a ballroom sort of. However, ballroom, but where rich people would eat breakfast and then after have like a little bit of a sitting space. The room alone is decadent, okay? But Alandria in this photo, her ability to not get lost in these photos and to still stand out, because this is arguably a pretty busy background and she stands out. Her side profile looks stunning because she's standing to the side in this photograph. She looks regal. She looks rich. She looks like a princess. She has on like a satin or silk red ball gown that's floor length and these just detailed art sleeves. Stunning. As I stated, she looks like she owns this house. She looks like she's in her palace. She looks like she's meant to be there. She is in a art, like she's in a work of art room, and she still stands out. Next photo. Alandria, I believe, is in the same dress. She is, because I can tell by the sleeves. Same red dress, but we now get a close-up. First of all, her waist. Second up, her hair, her makeup. Olandria, you don't even need to see her hands. She's stunning. This next photo is another one of my favorites. I feel like this is a power pose. I feel like she seems like a boss. I feel like, again, it just seems rich and sophisticated. And I love the short hair. I'm a sucker for the short hair. The leg up, tell me that she doesn't look like she could be lead in one of Shonda Rhimes' next series. Okay, Alandria, I'm gonna need you to get into acting classes because you can go anywhere. Now, I'm going down a little bit because I believe people had more photos in this comment. What? Okay. I know that there's more photos than this from the Harper's Bazaar photo shoot, but that's all that I'm seeing on the Reddit thread. It's safe to say she's stunning. Also, this is like the second thing that she's done today. She did, I think it was an EOS body wash campaign earlier this same day. She's in her bag. Let's talk about Dancing with the Stars. I'm going to transfer over to Dancing with the Stars. Last night, I'm going to be honest, I like to start Dancing with the Stars at 9 p.m. It comes on at 8 p.m. That gives me about an hour of leeway to fast forward through things. And the only thing that I like to watch for most of the contestants is the dance and the judges' scores. That's it. I don't even really like to watch the feedback at this point in this season of Dancing with the Stars. Let me say that, okay? However, I believe last night they were celebrating their 20th year on air, but I titled this, as you know, when you clicked into this lives, Dancing with the Stars celebrates 20 years of Carrie Ann's Misogynoir, because that's been a running theme. There is no reason why, first of all, Andy Richter should have still been on Dancing with the Stars until last night. He should have been sent home much sooner. Tons of viewers and critics have pointed out the biased commentary and how the women have such harsh commentary compared to men like Andy Richter, who basically just smile and wave and get off with how fun they are to watch or how charismatic they are instead of talking about their footwork or nitpicking them. And I'm tired of Carrie Ann acting like she does these things to help people be better, because there's not really a tip attached to her criticisms when she gives them specifically to Black women. It really sort of feels like it's a moment to humble them, because we see a behind the scenes moment last night where we learn how the judges punch their scores in, and Carrie Ann tries to assert that all of them are trying to bring something different with their commentary and their feedback. So if the other judges have said all things positive, then she's going to point out something that they could work on, because everybody is trying to be a better dancer. That's a lie. And you want to know how I know that's a lie? Because Robert, Dylan, Whitney, Alex, none of them had any feedback to offset the positive feedback. Also, that's odd, right? Like sometimes if you give someone a perfect 10, they might not have things to work on. So it's making it seem like nobody's ever good enough. And I felt like they added that moment into Dancing with the Stars last night as a response to all of the criticism that Carrie Ann has been getting online, to try to be like, look, see, Carrie Ann is just the judge who chimes in with like the negative feedback. No, she ruins the entire judging panel. Derek constantly has to go after Carrie Ann and sort of try to give this really positive feedback or pour into this person after she's just dashed their hopes of getting a 10 that night. And just watching Ezra and Jordan have to support each other through her low blows week by week, it's just frustrating. I think Whitney deserved a 10. I think her dance was great, but I think that Jordan deserved a 10 as well. I'm tired of seeing Alex Earl. You want to know why? Because there's no heart when Alex Earl dances. She's not an entertainer. She's not a performer. She's not fun to watch. Jordan is. Jordan is. Whitney is. When we saw a brief cameo from Joey Grazadeh from last season, he has that stage presence as well. But Dylan Efron, he can go. What Randy Richter or Randy Ichter, whatever his name is, he shouldn't have been there. He should have been gone. Also, I'm rooting for Robert Irwin, but I'm going to be very honest at the risk of sounding a little bit cold. As someone who loves Steve Irwin, grew up on Steve Irwin, was rooting for Robert through this entire process, it feels like we are leaning very, very heavily into the story of his dad who was on TV and his passing and weaving that into his dances, so much so that I almost feel like the judges are putting themselves in this position where they feel like if they give him a lower score, like it's sort of like criticizing that story or not appreciating it. I don't know. And I'm not to say that Robert isn't great. He is. But he, to me personally, isn't as fun to watch again as even just that cameo that we got from Joey. So that's how I'm feeling on Dancing with the Stars. Carrie Ann, I see you. Okay. Jordan and her partner, I'm sure, see you. I'm sure her parents see you. There's tons of viewers at home who see you. And I'm quite tired of having her on the show. So if you agree, let me know in the comments. Like this live, like this stream if you agree. I know I can't be the only one. I've heard other people say this on social media. But again, if you're not watching Dancing with the Stars, you could easily just find a clip and sort of get the vibe for the situation. Let's talk dancing. Oh my God, no. Let's talk. Gotcha. Stay on your toes. Let's talk Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. I want to preface with the fact that my notes are by no means overly detailed, nor do I think that they are in order. When I was taking my notes, I like to enjoy my shows, and sometimes at the expense of that, I realize halfway through that I haven't taken notes. So I'll rewind and go frame by frame and try to kind of recall things. Or sometimes I even just don't rewind and try to recall things and paraphrase because I kind of think that summarizing things in the main points is the best way to recap an episode, anyways. So this won't be overly detailed, but I'm going to talk about the main things that all of us saw and witnessed on last night's episode. We start still on this dang yacht. We cannot get off this yacht. I'm sure the below deck crew can't wait for them to get off the yacht. We haven't seen more of Angie's seasickness. I don't know if they held out on her on the Dramamine patches. I don't know if they pulled off board so they could get her some, but seemingly that's no longer an issue. We're still on the boat, and Meredith and Bronwyn are planning to throw Uni, who is Brittany's stuffed unicorn from Jared, which also has Jared's voice inside of it, overboard. And basically, Brittany sees this and that Uni is wet, and she's very upset because I wish I could remember where Brittany said Jared went for this because it was hilarious. I want to add, this would have been the time if I'm Jared Osmond's manager. Let's just say I'm his manager. This would have been the time to give her a ring. And when they ask where he got the ring, say, oh, he went to Jared, and do a sponsorship. Brittany and Jared, I know your team's not as smart as me because you guys missed out on that. Second of all, throw Jared out of it. He doesn't need to be involved. That would have been a great one-liner for Brittany. Now you can't use it because I said it first, and Just kidding. But yeah, no, they should have made a joke about that. But he went to the Great Lakes, or he went somewhere to the adult Build-A-Bear, got her this unicorn, recorded "I love you, baby" on it, and she's upset that it's wet. Meredith was being very Regina George, and she was like, "Well, it didn't have your foundation on it." Very nasally. Is that nice of them? No. Was it kind of funny? Honestly, not really. Like, I don't think it was that much of a gag in the episode. However, hearing Brittany say, like, that was very sentimental to me, that was good, right? Okay. They take the flight home, and Bronwyn apparently, there's confusion. Bronwyn either doesn't fly home with the ladies and flies by herself, or Bronwyn flies with Todd. It's sounding like Bronwyn flew back by herself because she knows nothing about what happened on the plane. It's sounding like she wasn't there. Either that, or she was sitting back in commercial and not up with the ladies in first class, and she was too far back to hear, or she took an even bigger sleeping pill than Heather. But somehow Bronwyn wasn't there. And we learn later in the episode that the ladies weren't the only ones who had a controversial flight home, because Todd on his flight home was seen on his phone looking at women who aren't Bronwyn in lingerie. Now, my first thought was, oh, did they catch him looking at corn? Like, was he looking at a Playboy? Like, was this an Instagram baddie? But it's seeming like this was text messages, or this was something that was sent to Todd. Anyways, the women, that's what Bronwyn's doing. The women are on their flight home and already at the airport before they even board the plane. Meredith starts with Brittany. She's bringing back up how Brittany showed Whitney that there was a TikTok made about how Meredith's husband Seth cheated on her in Columbus, Ohio. Shout out to Ohio. So Meredith starts at the airport, and then they get on the plane, and Rumors and Nastiness are seated behind Brittany and Heather. Now, Heather takes a very large sleeping pill and goes to sleep. That's my assumption, okay? For legal purposes, we do not know that, but I am assuming that she took a large sleeping pill. She goes to sleep. As stated, Rumors and Nastiness, which is going to be my nickname for Meredith and Lisa, are behind her. And we start to hear a retelling of the torment that goes on this plane. They are yelling at Brittany, "You fucked up. You fucked up. Just show her the TikTok. Just show her the TikTok. Give her your phone. Just give her your phone." Then we throw some sauce on it, and Brittany's getting her hair yanked by, we don't know if it's Lisa or Meredith. And then allegedly Meredith gets up and shakes Brittany's chair, and this causes wine to spill, or perhaps that was a separate thing. She's telling other people in first class, look at her, it's her. And apparently this goes on for the duration of the 4 to 5 hour flight. Now, my question is, do you believe this? I need everybody who's watching to put in the chat right now, do you believe that things on the plane were as elevated as they described? Second of all, how do we not have more perspective into this? Number one, bravo. Go get the security, the CCTV footage from your airport gate. I want to see the start of this and Meredith going off. I want to see how it started. Then you're sitting here, presumably in first class, and let's say the ladies take up about 6 seats. Are the rest of the seats filled with production? Because if yes, then there should be video. If no, you're still not off the hook, because you mean to tell me that all of the first class people sitting there in first class Nobody picked up a camera. Nobody was like, oh my God, I think I've seen these ladies on TV, or just recorded it in general because it's an interaction on an airplane. Then we add on the fact that we've got a whole plane. This is a commercial flight. We've got 280 passengers back behind first class, and there's no recounted testimony. We can't get an interview with any of these people. There's no videos on TikTok already, or posted to Twitter, or over on Threads with a video from a passenger's perspective of what was going on. And then lastly, there's stewardesses. You lead me to believe that they're walking up and down the aisles and never once say anything or try to mediate the situation. And then two, I want to hear what they think then. I want to hear what the stewardesses, what the pilot thought. I want to hear everything. The fact that we have such little visual perspective into this situation, that's diabolical. This is not even a trip outside of production. Like, this is a housewives trip that they're coming home from. I don't understand how there's not roll the tapes moment for us to just see who's right and who's wrong. But I'll tell you this. As everybody starts to talk about this incident, we see Heather and Britani go to lunch, and Britani tells Heather that she's not going to be around Lisa or Meredith anymore. Okay, fair. I honestly don't blame her, especially if things were as bad as she said. Heather apologizes to Britani for playing the middle and says that she's not going to play the middle anymore because this was really, they're not coming back from this. Like, she can't defend the way that Britani was treated, so she's going to have her back on this. Until I see Mary's version, I don't believe the extent to which they say that things got. I don't know. Like, I kind of feel like Bronwyn. Like, what do you mean? What do you mean all of this happened and she wasn't duct taped to the seat? She wasn't held at the airport jail. She wasn't put on a no-fly list. I'm just confused. Like, the white privilege of it all. Trust me, it's absolutely possible. These are rich women, that there was no punishment. But I just have to believe that if they're on a commercial flight, until Mary, once Mary said that she's sitting diagonal, either one row or two rows back, because they show us the seating chart, that much they can at least do. Then I'm like, I believe Mary. Mary's unbiased in this. She doesn't really care either way. She doesn't like Britani. In fact, she was fine when she said that she was happy that, no, she's fine. Okay. She doesn't need to hear Britani. So for her to defend Britani and say what's right is right, what's wrong is wrong, that was absolutely horrible. That's when I believe it. Now, Lisa and Heather go to lunch and end up getting into it because Lisa's downplaying her involvement. She's saying that she'll take a responsibility only for holding Lisa back, but she didn't egg the situation on, and neither of them knew that Britani could hear them because she had on headphones. Now, I would like them to know that not only did Britani hear you, but allegedly all of first class heard you. So this wasn't like a small encounter. I think everybody who witnessed it, besides Lisa and Meredith, know that Meredith was popping off, that this was uncomfortable, and they said that it lasted much longer than 15 minutes. Mary and Meredith go to lunch, and you can tell that Mary's a good friend because she's actually concerned about Meredith. She could be like angry or just annoyed at having to deal with this situation, or just nonchalant and not get involved in it. Not my circuit. What is it? Not my circus, not my monkey, not my monkey, not my circus. She could feel that way, but she goes to lunch with Meredith, and she's just like, how are you doing? Because I feel concerned. And Meredith is like, I don't know why you're concerned. I remember that I watched 2 movies on this flight. I fell asleep. The plane ride is only so many hours. So I know that everybody is talking about this situation, but I didn't say anything about Britani that I haven't said to her face. And I know what I did, watched 2 movies, fell asleep. There wouldn't be time for me to spend 4 hours yelling at Britani on a 5-hour flight. Obviously, this situation lasted about 15 minutes. Granted, this is Meredith's version. Okay? Because everybody else thinks that this lasted a lot longer, to the point where everybody is describing this as tormenting Britani, feeling bad for Britani. So at some point in the conversation, you can tell that Mary starts to like deepen her concern for Meredith. And it's more like, no, I'm actually believing that you don't remember what you did in this situation, and that's what's concerning. Because what if I believe you that that's what you remember from the situation, but as your friend, I need to tell you it was much worse. And I know how you like to protect your image, and I know how you like to conduct yourself. So, how you were acting before and the ways I've seen you be angry before, this was not that. And behind the scenes, she's sort of wondering, is this drinking? Is this the sleeping pill? Is this mixing the two? Is there something going on? Like I said, we need to roll the tapes. And Meredith and Lisa, I don't know. I think Meredith, I don't want the cast of Real Housewives of Selling Sunset, oh my God, Real Housewives of Salt Lake City to change. But I think that when Mary told Meredith that she was boring, I think that that got in her head. And I also don't think that Mary was lying about that. I don't think that Mary was lying about that. I think that that's been in the background for Meredith. And I also think that her and her husband are definitely cheating. Like, let's address that part of the situation. This started because Brittany saw a TikTok of rumors that Seth was cheating on Meredith. I think they have an arrangement, especially after we hear Whitney go to lunch with Bronwyn and talk about how her and her husband have had an arrangement and how she's going to explore things and treat herself once her kids are out of the house. I thought it was interesting that they're both I think they both were raised Mormon. I think they both went to BYU. I think that they both married older husbands. I think that their situation is very interesting. To end with from this episode, because I know I missed it, but I want to make a small comment. When they showed us Angie and Electra talking in her room, and Angie is sitting there in her Greek flag sweater, that she has to have Electra notice, and that she's talking again about her dual citizenship, and she's trying to convince Electra to run track for Greece in the Olympics instead of the United States. I think Electra's reaction to Angie, I feel like that's a normal reaction for a teenager. Like, maybe I don't have the perspective, so let me know what everybody else thinks. But Angie, I understand Angie too, and saying when I was 13, I also didn't care about these things. But I think that she's just being very forceful. And I think that when she admitted that to see Electra be closer with her husband's side of the family, or to just feel like what she's interested in. I don't know if she said running or riding, horseback riding. Whatever she's interested in, Angie can't really relate to. So she's trying to relate to her, but with something that Angie is passionate about. I think that she's going to continue to experience some pushback from her daughter, because I don't think she's getting in there. I don't think she's getting in there the way that she wants to get in there. Okay, that's pretty much my wrap on Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. Let me see. I need to pull up another tab because I want to talk about Blue really quickly. And if you don't know who I mean when I say I want to talk about Blue, I want to talk about Bluecentric, who's on YouTube, a great creator. If you are not following her, you should follow her. I want to talk about her because, first of all, I'm a fan. I've been listening to her content for a while now. And second of all, she pulled up my video, which my friend Nikki, shout out Nikki, thank you for sending this to me, or I might have missed it. In the middle of her live, she pulled up the video that I made, if not a year, maybe 2 years back, about Britani from Selling Sunset, her surgery journey she went on, also people that she was dating formerly. If you haven't seen the video, she was first with Hulk Hogan's son on Hogan Knows Best, which is a reality show I didn't even know existed until I found out Bree's connection with it. And then she married Johnny Manziel. Now, I'm familiar with Johnny Manziel because I'm from Ohio, specifically close to Cleveland, where we know him as Johnny Vegas, and seeing the lore and the connection between Bree and Johnny was strange. However, that's just to say, I appreciated her pulling up my video. I had a little bit of a fangirl moment, so I wanted to acknowledge her. Also, this entire video about Chelsea selling Sunset, the racism, the microaggressions from Mary, also just Bree's weird, corny ass. The entire episode was very good. So after I finish this live, I'm going to be linking a video. I'm going to be linking either Blue's profile or this video so that all of you can check her out. And if you are listening on the audio podcast, I'm not sure that Blue has an audio podcast, but if you ever go on YouTube, she's definitely worth listening to for her live streams and just general content that she provides. Next up, I said that I wanted to talk about, can I make this bigger? Okay. Can you guys see this? Okay, perfect. I said that I wanted to talk about Squid Game, the challenge. And if you are not familiar with Squid Game, the challenge, season 2 just came out. If you're not familiar with Squid Game, or if Squid Game's just not your vibe, I totally get that. But I watched season 1 2 years ago. I did interviews with both Ashley and Felicia, players who I adored from season 1. So naturally, I'm on season 2. And the first 8 episodes are out. We don't get the finale until next week, Tuesday. But I'm not going to be going episode by episode and recapping them. At least I don't have the plans to, unless a lot of you are also listening. But I want to talk about a theme I noticed episode 1. I want to talk about some players that I'm rooting for and rooting against. So this might have some spoilers for the show. So just prepare for that. Starting with episode 1, the players whom I loathed until their exit is these twins. These twins, players 431 and 432, as if the first season wasn't bad enough. I'm so sorry. Everyone won't love this, but I didn't like the mother son duo. Everybody thought it was the sweetest thing ever. She's a mature woman. How could you ever be mean to her? And I agree with all of that. However, that's an advantage in the game. I don't want you two together. So I wasn't a fan of that. This season, we had even more family members, and I guess multiplying it made it not stand out as much, but I already sort of generally found it annoying, except for Perla and maybe a couple of other contestants. These twins, they want the power. Episodes 1 through who even knows, okay? And they're British. I think they're content creators. And I already knew at that alone, I wouldn't like them. They kind of remind me of Mr. Beast. They're very cheeky. They think that they're very self-important. The way that they had the power to eliminate 3 people very early in the game, and the 3 people whom they chose to eliminate was all 3 people of color. I thought that was very interesting. I thought, they don't see a problem with that, because the whole thing is they were trying to figure out either who they had the least connection with, or whom they thought was the most suspicious or the biggest threat. And it just felt awfully prejudiced, to say the least, the way that they went about selecting people. Additionally, to hit on the self-importance thing, just because you volunteer for a game doesn't mean that you should be guaranteed safety in future games. In fact, you're kind of a liability for volunteering for that game because you didn't know what the outcome would be. And because you're more prone to making these decisions, now we have to worry about what advantage or disadvantage you might have against me as a player because you're sort of like a loose cannon. So I didn't like them. I also couldn't believe that as they split in two groups, that one of the brothers whose group members lost got to stay in the challenge simply because he volunteered. That's bullshit. I think that producers did that because these were the villains of the early part of the season. They were easy to hate. They had their story arc, and I think that they wanted them to go farther. I think that that was a last minute change that they made watching the game. And I think that that was made specifically for these two. Additionally, your ability to send home that musician who saved your ass right after, that was very cruel. That was very cruel. So I can't stand these guys. I'm very happy that they got sent home. I'm happy that you didn't get the 4.56 million. I don't think you deserve it. Up next on my Squid Game rant. This guy. This guy. If you're not looking, if you know me, you already know whose face is up on the screen. Player 183. Also, player 098, the other bald-headed guy. Yeah, both of you are on my shit list. First of all, the bald-headed Boston police officer, I knew he was a narc from the moment he opened his mouth. I would have called that out. The way that he talks, he was also just an a-hole. He was very condescending, the way that he ordered the group around, the way that he thought that he deserved to have control. He was also way too boisterous. I hate somebody who won't let me think or have a moment to think because they're talking so much. And that was player 098. Now, his twin brother, not real life twin, but these are two bald white men who somehow basically share the same face. This guy, what number is he? Because we're going to know. Player 183. Player 183 is also an asshole. And he is the World Series poker runner-up, which means that he has already won $6.5 million before in a competitive game. That also means that he likely blew through $6.5 million. You shouldn't be here, sir. You shouldn't be here. I can't even say how upset that would make me to lose to somebody who has had this opportunity presented to them before. Now, mind you, if you're not watching Squid Game the challenge, nobody knows this with the exception of it was first one young lady who left the competition, and when she left, she didn't know he won or the money, but she knew he was a poker player and she spilled that. Presently, there's one other woman who knows, and that would leave my mouth the moment that you told me. I don't care if that puts a target on my back because unless you win an advantage, you have a larger target on your back with the facilitated efforts of everybody else there. So, yeah, I think that he's a loser. I think that this season feels very weird, very weird. Somebody on Twitter said, let's see, what did they say? Because I want to say this correctly. There's been a lot of opinions and a lot of criticism that I've agreed with. First of all, rooting for everybody except Steven. But if one of these two take it home, I would be most happy. And that's player 302, player 072, Perla. Actually, I'm going to bring it up for you guys. For everybody who's listening on audio podcasts later, I'm sorry for the pauses. Bear with me. This is my live episode, so there's just going to be a couple more mistakes. Okay. Oh, good. I'm showing the right thing. Okay. So 302, I think her name's Deja, and Perla. I want them to win. I want them to win. And then I had to turn off my likes because, like, what? Sometimes I like embarrassing things. The last thing I was looking at was Audrey Hepburn. Okay, I found it. Where is my share screen? Okay, yeah. So shout out to Anti-Able on X. Squid Game, the challenge, low-key turning into a race war. That's how this feels. Like, that's how the series feels at this point in the season. And it's just very strange. It's very strange. The way that the white players have been moving when it comes in regards to the players of color, specifically the black players, is just like very strange. So I guess I had in my notes that this is Trump's America. That's what's coming through my mind on Squid Game, the challenge. Like, that's my main takeaway from watching this season. I will make one side note. I like the shoots and ladders game. I thought that that was, an interesting addition, especially because I played that game as a child. I also remember how frustrating it was to play that game and get sent down a chute when you're right about to win. So I like some of the challenges that they're doing this season, but just overall, the theme of the show seems problematic. It seems like there's a lot of things that are going on underlying and how people are moving. And it's just annoying to have Steven, who's lost $6 million already, here towards the end of the game. That's an absolute no from me. I think there was one more thing. It's this. All right. I said I was going through a multitude of things, and I think that I've delivered on that. We've talked about Salt Lake City. We've talked about Squid Game. We've talked about Olandria. But the last thing that I wanted to talk about was AD's podcast episode with Calabria that came out earlier today. If you're listening to this, it is Wednesday, November 12th. So this came out earlier today. And I have been saying all season of Love is Blind that it's just been both interesting and disappointing to see such a negative narrative surrounding KB this entire season. Now, let me add, if you did not tune into my interview that I did with China from Love is Blind, you absolutely should tap into that interview. It was an amazing conversation. China's entire journey was cut out on the season of Love is Blind, which is blasphemy because not only is she stunning, but she's interesting. She has a lot to say, a lot of unique perspective. But her and I had a conversation about KB and Edmund. And of course, there's a lot of stuff that we just aren't privy to as viewers and won't be. But one thing that I think I feel safe saying is that Edmund, at the very least, is just like a very unique personality. He's a unique personality. He has his quirks, and in order for Edmund to find a life partner or someone whom he's compatible with, they have to also be another unique individual who specifically wants a partner with qualities like Edmund. And while KB talks about in this interview with AD how a lot of her silliness and quirkiness or dancing in the kitchen was cut out from the show. In my opinion, that's still not matching Edmund's personality. And so I think that she was doomed from the beginning. I think that truthfully, KB lasted longer in this situation than most women would. I think that she was a lot kinder in this situation than most women would. And I think that she had a lot less choice in this situation to leave than most women would. And Leah, my perception is that production is most to blame because they allowed KB to be in this situation. They allowed Edmund to be in this situation. And let's be clear, I think that they saw that he's such a unique individual that they wanted to humiliate him and exploit him on the series. And that was evident from the moment that they never allowed him to respond to eating boogers, kissing the floor, the edits and the montages that they put in there of him. Or we've heard allegations of people of production allegedly trying to push him in one way to overact or to act a certain way on camera. But I want to talk about this part of KB's interview because another thing I've talked about is I personally don't think it's appropriate to diagnose Edmund, nor do I think it's appropriate for other people to. My stance on this is I don't believe that a therapist should diagnose anybody. I think that you can no, I don't even really think you can speculate. I'm gonna be honest. I think that there's certain things like, oh, that person's showing signs of narcissism, or oh, that if we hear that somebody has been abusive in multiple relationships, it's it's a fact that that person is abusive. But diagnosing people off of a very highly edited TV show to which people are also cast typed and put into a box and their footage is showing them in one way. And to say that Edmund is autistic all season or that he's neurodivergent and that's the reason for his actions, I think that's inappropriate. I think that regardless of if you're a mental health professional or not, he is not a patient under your care. I don't think that I don't think anybody has the qualifications for that. Granted, I just have a bachelor's in psychology, but even if I went along for a master's, I don't think people are qualified to say that. And I also think that by saying that, I think a lot of people aren't realizing that that has a negative connotation or almost like an ableist sentiment towards people who are neurodivergent, that they can't process their emotions or that people who are neurodivergent can't have a healthy relationship. I don't think that people are saying what they want to say. And KB talks about that as well on this episode. As I've mentioned before, YouTube has their own parameters on how much or how long of clips we're allowed to play from other content. So if you're interested in hearing KB directly speak on her reaction and Edmund's reaction to him being diagnosed, then you can listen to that specifically in her words because that is something she expresses. But this part, the second part of that is, and this is a separate conversation, a lot of people have excused Edmund's actions or infantilized Edmund this entire season when certain things he's done has been a clear indicator that that's not okay.
You told Edmund
Let's see.
wasn't the same person on camera. You talked a little bit about this at the reunion, but what did you really mean by that?
He just had a lot of different behaviors on and off camera. I think one of them was the drinking. When he was drinking, he was a different person. Sometimes more more tearful. Cool. I get cry whenever I'm drunk as hell too. But a lot of times it was he would just do things. He tried to take Casey to the bathroom when he was under the influence. I had a list and I left it somewhere.
Edmund tried to take Casey to the bathroom. I feel like there's so much more to that.
Was he under the influence? Yes. Do I think a lot of his bad decisions happened under the influence? Yes. He tried to.
And that's another thing that production exploits. They exploit the fact that when people are drinking, that they make these bad decisions. No, production is not pouring alcohol down anybody's throat, but by providing copious amounts of alcohol and not having as much access to copious amounts of food, or for anybody who's ever even gotten so drunk that You listen, it can go both ways. I can either house something or not have any appetite at all and dance the night away. Sometimes you don't have the desire to drink or to eat, or sometimes you can't even keep it down if you're that drunk. So I need production to be honest about how much they set up situations to happen. But in regards to Edmund offering to take Casey to the bathroom, again, that's inappropriate.
I tried to take her. I was going to take her to the bathroom. Then I wasn't taking her to the bathroom. Then none of it made sense. If you ask me. So he just never really owned it. And he was just like, oh, I just don't remember. Then it was, okay, well, I was just taking her to the bathroom to talk to her about me and KB's relationship. Because that's KB's friend. And I'm like, we have a balcony, mind you, a beautiful balcony.
Yeah.
You know, city views. And I'm like, bathroom is where I'm going to go take your homeboy to talk about me and your relationship versus, that didn't make no sense. Yeah.
Makes no sense. Uncomfortable. Odd.
Whatever.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm. So what was he going to go do? I don't know. He gaslighted me so bad about that afterwards. For weeks it was, you think I'm good enough to pull a girl like Casey? And I'm like, do you think you're good enough to? So I was like, okay, like you can't, whatever that meant. So I'm just like, okay. And then
my head is starting to hurt.
Girl, yes, it was.
So those comments, and then further along in the episode, let's see. I think I can actually pull it up.
Marshall's buyers travel far.
That scared me. Okay, so I'm going to play another clip about KB talking specifically about her experience with Edmund and some of the stereotypes that he was reinforcing in their relationship behind closed doors that she was shocked to hear him say.
It's me and you.
Did you try, or were you just like, you knew you couldn't?
I tried. I 100% tried. But the problem with that was when I did try, I would end up having to defend African Americans to a Black man.
Oh.
And it's just like, how do you not, like, how are you so out of it? But environmental, and also his situation made him look at Black men and Black women differently, especially Black women. And I would trigger him a lot just as a Black woman. Like, I might talk a little passionately when I get upset, but you're very hard to communicate with sometimes. And it would make him shut down, or he would just do this thing and just stare at me. I kid you not, he would just eat. Yeah, I would be like, okay, like, are you in the room with me right now?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, but I would say, like, I had a great experience outside of my, I had a great experience with my couple as well, but I had a great experience with the production. I had a great experience with my girl.
So I think that adds some context to KB and Edmund's relationship too. I just think KB has gotten a lot of flack for how she has dealt with Edmund in their relationship. And I think that behind closed doors, I think that the experiences that she was having with him, I think he's like unfairly being infantilized, whereas she's being villainized. And I think that there was a lot going on in the relationship to where he was exhibiting red flags, or also even just putting her in a state of being uncomfortable or being upset or feeling triggered by him or feeling insecure about herself or their relationship. So I think a lot of that's not being acknowledged. That's my thoughts. I'm going to wrap up this live. Everybody, make sure that you are liking the live. Oh my gosh, not you tapping in right as I am tapping out. I'm so sorry. To anybody who's just popping in, I'm about to post this. It'll be up on YouTube. Like the live, listen, leave your comments. I'll be back on throughout the day so that I can interact with all of you and see what you thought about this episode. But we covered a multitude of things, and I just thank you all for being here and spending any time in your afternoon with me. Bye.